Okay, back at it again with my man who's red hot. And honestly, when they jumped out to a 14-0 lead, I was thinking Carolina gonna win this shit outright. And then the Dolphins came storming back and boat raced them. But it was fun, and obviously the Giants Sunday night easily could have won that game with Tyrod Taylor, but Stuckey from the Action
Couldn't get a
Network,
yard. Couldn't get a yard.
big bets on campus. I'm glad I didn't do that money line parlay of the two teams. Though when they were up 14-0, I was in the back of my head. Got $100, might have paid like $7,000 for this two-team money line parlay.
I was thinking of you because I didn't know if you decided to pass or parlay or just play one of them. And then during the Panthers game, I was like, oh wow, 14-0. Then during the Giants game, I was like, man, I hope John didn't have that at the end when they couldn't get a yard multiple times.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was big time smoke and mirrors with the Carolina, who was just terrible, right? I mean, the Giants legitimately have some fight in them. They have a good coaching staff. I think that was a good example of Daboll, clearly have a pretty good beat on the team that they were playing. But the Panthers, I mean, is it out of the realm of possibility? Now their division sucks. Because last week we were humbled. We talked Niners undefeated. They lost. Though they easily could have won if the fucking guy can hit a field goal. Carolina definitely doesn't have more than 2 wins in them. So anytime that you're a 2-15 team, you're going to be flirting because they're not going to win a game probably more than likely if they do by more than a touchdown. They're going to be flirting with it, especially as this goes on. I would say, having watched them, they got a chance to not win a game.
Yeah, I mean their division isn't great, so they'll probably get one, but it's bad. The defense will probably get better. They got to get healthier. I mean, they're basically playing without their entire secondary right now. But yeah, it's a bad football team to not cover. It was the biggest spread of all time for a team not to cover after jumping out to a 14-0 lead. So it takes a lot of
Stuckey, you would have been up plus 28 at the time. You would have been cruising. Yeah. I mean, how do you lose?
And then they get a pick 6 late because I had some 14. They got a pick 6 late and then onside kick. They gave up another touchdown to Mike White and didn't even push my 14. So yeah, Panthers are on my shit list, but it's we're on to another week of the NFL.
Okay,
by the way, in that I wanted to ask you about that Shanahan. Home field advantage means a little bit more in non-conference, non-divisional games because of the lack of familiarity with just like little nuances of stadiums. I've seen I think like 10, 11 games in Cleveland when I go see the Ravens play there every year. And there's a flag in the corner of the stadium. They call it the Phil Dawson flag. And when it's whipping, the field goals in that stadium are wild, and you get some wild misses, and the wind just pushes balls. And Shanahan starts just, hey, we're going to take a knee, and they cut to the stadium with the camera, and I saw that flag whipping, and it was whipping to the way that he missed. And I was like, this is a mistake. I'm saying to myself, they should try to get more yardage here. Inexperienced kicker, not familiar with the stadium, with just horrendous. When winds pick up in Cleveland and that flag is going, it's like whenever all like the really, really smart fans that have been to many games there, whenever there's a field goal time, everyone looks at this flag in the corner of the stadium, and that thing was going 100 miles an hour towards the right, and that's right where the kick went. So like if that was like the Steelers or Ravens, they would probably be familiar with that flag and knowing. And I personally would have just tried to run it just 1 or 2 more times. And you don't want to make a mistake against a really good defense. It could also cause a negative play, but I wasn't surprised that he missed that kick that way. And that's what happens.
That's why I defended him, just because that defense looked like the 85 Bears or the Steel Curtain, and you couldn't afford. It's a different scenario, but like Mario Cristobal, what if you run it? McCaffrey's hurt. Mason fumbles. What if you try some play action pass? Purdy slips, takes a sack. Like, to me, because of the defense, you were kind of on edge. And my thought was like, well, shit, 40. If you can't you're drafting a kid in the third round from the Big Ten who should have a feel for whipping wins. But I put that a little then on Kyle for, I know he short-lived time in Cleveland, but should have a feel for the crazy wins in that place. I also think that the Moody, he's done this twice now. He did it in a preseason game and he just did it in another game. He hooked his first kick. He's like a golfer. When you hook your first drive, your next drive, you're like, no matter what, I'm not going to the left trees. You end up slicing it the other way. And the ball started out, even despite the wind, basically at the pylon because he's probably afraid to just let it get pushed on the left pylon because his last kick hooked. I think he's got like this thing in his head, and this is the knock. And I support, like, I got no problem. If you love a kicker, they had 1 million third-round picks, draft the guy. But unlike other positions where it's like, well, he's never going to live up to the hype, but he can be like a rotational DB or he can be a rotational slot receiver. As a kicker, he's either going to be good or bad. There's like no middle ground. And right now it's a little sketchy. And they're just going to play in some tight games, right? Whether it's the Eagles, whether it's the Cowboys against the Lions, whoever in the playoffs. They play the Eagles in the regular season, the Seattle short week. Like they have been pretty dependent during their success with the kicker in Robbie Gould. And I think I wouldn't say he's a major question mark, but it's definitely a conversation that everyone has when they roll him out. Like, is this guy going to miss?
Yeah, no, it's a good point too. In that, I mean, Samuel and McCaffrey were hurt, playing a defense that creates a ton of negative plays. It's also
O-line had been getting worked,
and there's a wet ball, so like you could fumble it, and like so I could see it, but I disagree with. Look, there's very few exceptions where these high draft kickers work out. One of the only few is Janikowski, who was actually taken in the first round different times.
Sneaky, like hot take on Seabass. Sneaky, a little overrated when you look at his numbers because he played on such a shitty team for so long, and he was a cool, famous guy. I went to a lot of the Raider games. He missed a ton of kicks. Not as good as the hype behind him.
I agree. He had a big leg, but I'm saying that he at least like gave you longevity. And I mean, look, Cade York, the kid for the Browns that they had a cut, was a third-round draft pick 2 years ago. There are countless examples of that. Yeah, the best, but like you just mentioned, Gould, undrafted. Best kicker in NFL history, Justin Tucker, undrafted. Like the best kickers have been just undrafted finds. So yeah, it'll be interesting to watch Moody going forward. And if he, because it seems like he's like overcorrecting a little bit, which you don't want your kicker to be thinking about.
Yeah, it's a little bit like drafting a high quarterback. The pressure, everyone's like, well, you drafted this kicker really high. Like Daniel Carlson, who's really good for the Raiders, cut by another team, right? So he wasn't even your pick. That happens all the time with kickers. Maybe they're drafted in the 5th or 6th round, but they go on to have success for another team. So there's like zero pressure when they go somewhere else. And I think this Moody thing, a huge part of his story was like, you drafted this guy on the second day, right? It's not legend at Michigan, hit all these kicks. No one even cares about that now. So I'm with you. I'm not disputing there's a lot of risk, but like the other dude they drafted in the 3rd round, Latu, this tight end from Alabama, is on injured reserve. So they're like, there's a crapshoot. But like you said, the history of drafting kickers, just in general, like even a 5th round pick, the Minnesota Vikings took Carlson in the 5th round, not even on their team, right? So it's like he's having success somewhere else. So yeah, it could get dicey. Luckily, Robbie Gould's just playing golf in Chicago, so his phone will ring. I promise you that if he misses another kick.
That's the Browns. The Browns went out and they signed just a veteran Hopkins, and he's been good for them. And but yeah, before we get to the slate, whenever Janikowski gets brought up, I have to bring up this clip. Whoever, if you're listening, want to chuckle, just go to YouTube, type in Janikowski, Lane Kiffin. 1 week before Davis fired Lane Kiffin, he trotted Janikowski out at the end of the first half in a game to attempt a 76-yard field goal against the wind. One of the funniest plays. The announcers are like flabbergasted. The kick came up like 20 yards short, but Lane Kiffin attempted a 76-yard field goal into the wind with Janikowski in an NFL game, but 1 week before he got fired.
Well, you're a Philly guy. You probably remember when Akers, we played like the Packers the year they won the Super Bowl and missed a bunch of kicks. didn't resign him. He goes to the Niners and has
Yep.
like a career year with Harbaugh, and they end up going to the NFC Championship and losing to the Eli team. We drafted this dude named Henry from Nebraska, I think in the 4th round. And by the middle of training camp, the dude couldn't get it even close to the uprights, and he was gone within like a year. So it shows you like a lot of positions beside quarterback, you can just mix them in, right? So even if they're not ready to at kicker, there's not like 2 kickers on your team. The guy's either good or he's not. So it's the pressure on that position. While most humans make fun of it, all special teams, it is uniquely like you're pretty dependent on the guy, right? I mean, you need the guy to fucking make kicks. I bet a lot of people listening or watching have been in an accident. I bet a lot of people have been into an intense car accident. And let's face it, not knowing who to call for help is hard. Hiring Morgan & Morgan is easy because Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm with over 100 offices nationwide with more than 800 lawyers. They've recovered over $15 billion for over 300,000 clients. Morgan & Morgan has a proven track record of fighting to get you full and fair compensation. They've been fighting for the people for over 35 years. Submitting an injury claim with Morgan & Morgan is so easy. That's the key. Not having representation is hard. Fighting with Morgan & Morgan is easy. If you've ever been injured, you can check out Morgan & Morgan. Their fee is free unless they win. For more information, go to forthepeople.com/John or dial pound law, pound 529 from your cell phone. That's FOR thepeople.com/JOHN or pound law, pound 529 from your cell phone. This is a paid advertisement. Let's dive into college. People like when you hear the casual person, like in the Northeast, they don't really care about college football. New York, right? Washington, Boston. I think there's probably some validity and truth to that, but having lived in Philly, Penn State's a pretty big deal. Obviously, a lot of people that live in that general area either grow up Penn State fan, go to school there. I was there when the Sandusky thing happened, and that's all anyone talked about. It just because it resonated with a lot of people. Joe Pa, the program. So I've always kind of liked the Big Ten beside the Pac-12, followed it closely my whole life. Just they were always on TV when I was a kid. I hate Ohio State for whatever reason. I don't really know why. I just do not like them. Like I don't really like Texas football either. But I legitimately don't like Ohio State, and not a big fan of Ryan Day. And I am behind what Harbaugh said landing on third base because I do think there's some validity to that comment. Like Urban Meyer handed him a loaded program, which always kind of runs itself. And let's face it, the last couple of years, everyone always points to his record. Well, he's got beat by Michigan twice. And this year, I think there is a ton of pressure on him, obviously, this week. And everyone, what's Michigan right now, the look-ahead line in that game? Favored by a touchdown, or it depends if they win this game?
Yeah, it'll depend on this, but Michigan at home, probably as of right now, it'd probably be like 4.5, 5 right now. But if they lose this game, you can get up to a touchdown, and Michigan keeps rolling.
So he's a clear underdog against Michigan. He's favored in this game, but I don't love James Franklin. It's not like I think he's like some historic coach, but he has built a really good team, and I'll give James this. James is an offensive guy, former wide receiver coach. Watch their defense. He really cares about that side of the ball. Like you watch Lincoln Riley, offensive guy, doesn't give a shit. I think Ryan Day is kind of obsessed with the quarterback and the wide receivers, which has served him well. But I think when I think Ohio State, and you've been watching this conference probably more closely than me over your life, feels like Ohio State in the peak of their powers was always dominant on defense, right? And now I watch them the last couple of years, like that was their downfall against Michigan. So I'm going Penn State in this game.
Yeah, I like Penn State as well. I will give credit. I'm not a Ryan Day guy either. James Franklin has taken money from me in the past with his antics at the end of games when he covers with fake kneel downs earlier this year with the backup quarterback up like 30. But anyway, I'll give credit to, and I agree with some of the things you said and that Harbaugh alluded to with Day, and his play calling has been kind of questionable at times. I will give credit to both coaches in that they went out in recent seasons and hired two of the most respected defensive coordinators in the country. Jim Knowles, who came from Oklahoma State, and Manny Diaz, who I think got a pretty bad rep for his head, but he just wasn't a great head coach. but always a great defensive coordinator. So both these teams have really solid defensive coordinators. Ohio State's defense had fallen off a cliff. A lot better this year. They might be down their star corner, Denzel Burke, worth monitoring. But their defense is a lot better this year. Penn State's defense is dominant. But I like Penn State to win this game. I think it's going to be close, low scoring. I like the under. I'm not a McCord guy. Aller's not throwing the ball down the field. Both teams have some offensive line issues. I think the defensive lines on each side are going to win in the trenches. The biggest question for me and the biggest unknown is the Penn State offense. So, like, we don't know. We just don't know. They haven't thrown the ball downfield at all. Like, I'm talking 9 times on throw the ball 20 yards downfield the entire season. Now, they haven't had to. Right? Their defense. They played nobody. I mean, you played Delaware, UMass. I mean, they played Northwestern. They played absolutely nobody. Illinois is the best team that they played. So they haven't had to do it. They've gotten short fields. They've turned teams over. So the question coming in with this Penn State team, because they are in the discussion of, all right, who are the teams? Because this year it's 7 to 10 teams. Who are the teams that could win the national title? Penn State's in that discussion. But the question with them is they have the defense and they have the talent at quarterback. We haven't seen it yet, but the wide receiver room and the quarterback, you got to prove it. You're going to have to score points. You're going to have to eventually throw. It's hard. Yeah. So this is what we'll find out about Penn State, because there's no data point to know as of right now. And an argument is that Penn State just they didn't have to. So why show much, right? The new quarterback, new receiving room. So, that's the big question coming into here. Can Aller in this offense, they're going to have to hit some shots, because you're not going to just completely shut down this Ohio State offense, although Notre Dame basically did for an entire game. But Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to probably have 2 touchdowns somehow. So you're going to have to do something in the passing game, and that's what we'll learn about Penn State. But, yeah, I think Penn State finds a way to win this game, low scoring, like the under.
One thing that would be interesting if Penn State does pull off the upset is they do get Michigan at home. Yeah. And we know that place, it's already slated looking at the schedule for a morning kickoff, but who knows? Maybe they could change that. If they could pull that off at night, a whiteout, that place would be going bananas.
Yeah. And then, it'd be like basically Penn State beats Ohio State, probably Penn State -1 in that game pick.
It's not like Michigan's playing anybody.
Yeah, Mitch, we won't get anything more from Michigan. Michigan will just keep blowing out bad teams until that game.
Okay, last week, and I've been doing this, try to pick a team in the NFL who I thought was just better than the other team, and it worked until I went with the Saints, who were recording this before Thursday night game. I would never bet on the Saints. Like, Derek Carr, get out. Like, that would give me a break. Last week was an embarrassment. But there was a game. I couldn't really find a game that I loved this week on the NFL slate to handle that. I was thinking maybe Seattle at home hosting Arizona, but Arizona's feisty. And so it's like I stayed away. One game I love. Now, it's a little different philosophy because both these two teams in theory are good. But Utah beat this team twice last year. And defensively, Utah is really good. USC's got a lot of issues. And Utah's offense, because their starting quarterback and even their backup quarterback got hurt in a tackle scrimmage during August. So that their quarterback situation's been a little bit of a mess. But defensively, Kyle Whittingham is one of the best coaches in the country. And the moment Lincoln Riley signed for $120 million, he circled that game. Every time they play, it means a lot to him. Obviously, last year, the fuck Utah and Caleb's fingernails. I just think Utah is going to be able to physically play with them. Now, do I know if they win the game? I don't know. I don't know if I take a money line, but getting 7 points against a team that he's going to be very comfortable playing. He's always played USC well since he's been, since they've gone into the Pac-12. They've upset him several times early on. Looking back, it probably wasn't even as crazy of an upset as we thought. But now that they're kind of viewed as equals, I just like Utah. I actually love Utah +7.
I slightly disagree. I mean, I played USC early in the week. This line has gone up. There's a couple things. I mean, Utah's offense is dreadful. I mean, it is bad. They have no quarterback without Cam Rising. Now they're down their top 2 tight ends. I mean, Kuthi hasn't played. I think he's going to redshirt along with Rising. They just lost Thomas Yasmin, their next starting tight end. They have no receivers. They can't throw the ball at all.
They moved a defensive player last week to running back, but he did go for $140, didn't he?
Yeah, he played well this, and was playing on both sides. It's hard for me to see them. And look, they played 5 Power 5 teams, but they played like all freshman quarterbacks getting their first start, including last week. They played Graham Mertz in his first game. Even when they went down to Baylor, they played their backup quarterback, and Baylor's bad this year. So they haven't really played an offense with a pulse yet. Their star safety and defensive leader, Cole Bishop, is out for a bullshit targeting call that he got in the fourth quarter last week. He's going to be out in the first half. That's big because if they get behind in this game, it's trouble because they're just not going to be able to keep up. And then the way that they can, look, they can, hey, we're going to be physical and they will out physical USC. But USC could just load the box here. They don't have to worry about a thing on the outside. And that's what USC did last week, and Notre Dame didn't really do anything on offense. USC and Caleb Williams just turned it over 5 times. Notre Dame only had 250 yards. They only averaged like 4 yards per carry. But I think USC comes out here with their hair on fire after last week, trying to avenge those 2 losses last year. I think Whittingham's a better coach. They have a better staff. They're more physical. But I just think with the quarterback situation, it's tough to see them keeping up. But I don't blame you for wanting to take the 7 now that it's at a touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, let's just say USC gets to 28 points, can Utah get to that kind of 3 touchdown mark? It could be difficult, but USC's defense is not good either. And to me, that O-line, Notre Dame shoved them around. Obviously, that's how Utah historically just wins, right? Their defensive front is just full of NFL guys. They'd have to ugly the game. I'm not expecting 3 turnovers from Caleb, but it gets ugly. Now, maybe I think you're going to learn a lot about USC, right? Getting your ass kicked and then playing a team who just humbled you last year. So you, in theory, should get USC's best. And Lincoln Riley, you pay $120 million for this, like how you bounce back when you lose. So it's a big game too for Caleb. Like I promise you, there's growing Drake May buzz, especially now Tez Walker's back. Like it's not, obviously he's the number 1 prospect, but this gap, it's not like Trevor Lawrence to Zach Wilson. It ain't Grand Canyon size. I promise you that in executives. Here's something every football fan should know. You can get anything you need for game day delivered with Uber Eats. Well, almost anything, because you can't get your dream running back for your fantasy team delivered with Uber Eats. But they will deliver get flapjacks, tacos, and 6-packs. Great pass protection? No. Great pizza selection? Yes. Championship defense? No. Deodorant? Yes. Turnovers? No. Turnovers, the pastry? Yes, because that's groceries. And get those delivered with Uber Eats too. And food from your favorite restaurants. And other essentials. So this season, get anything. Well, almost anything for game day by ordering on the Uber Eats app. Uber Eats, official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Alcohol in select markets. Product availability may vary by region. See app for details. Okay, let's dive into some of your picks. Pats. This Mac Jones thing is getting worse by the week. Buffalo's getting weird, though. Obviously, last week, are you chalking that up to just playing Brian Daboll Sunday night, getting the Giants kitchen sink game, or the injuries, just some weird stuff going on, divisional game? This feels like if you just ask the casual fan, Bills are going to kill them. But, you never know at home. My question is this. When does the New England crowd start to be like kind of shitty? That they've been for 20 plus years rocking and rolling there. Are they going to get the same kind of buzz at kickoff that they're used to? I wonder if it kind of starts to dwindle. I don't even blame it. If I was a season ticket holder, I'd be giving my tickets away right now.
Yeah, this is probably the last game that you'll see a good crowd. I mean, even if against the Saints, they have this crowd left before half. I was talking to a season ticket holder there. This is the last game because it's the Bills. Yeah, he went, but he left as well. It's the Bills. People are still like just enthralled about what's going on. They want to come and boo still, but eventually they're going to stop going. The Pats are a mess right now. Hopefully the offensive line gets a lot better. I mean, the offensive line they've been trotting out there. If you look at like pass block grading, some of the guys because of their injuries are like among the 10 worst. 3 or 4 of their guys among the 10 worst out of 200 offensive linemen. So hopefully you get like Reef and Strange back. But the Bills, I just think it sucks betting the Pats. They're awful. And even on special teams, like in every phase, Belichick definitely has no speed on his fastball and no Tom Brady to save him. But this line is just too high in a divisional game. I mean, a couple weeks ago, the Bills were 8.5 point favorites at home in a great spot after a loss against the Raiders. and now they're 8.5 point favorite on the road against the Patriots. And in that game against the Raiders, they were fully healthy. They've now basically lost 3 all-pro caliber, 3 guys playing at an all-pro level in the defense. Matt Milano's leader of their defense. You're falling off to a rookie. Daquan Jones playing at an all-pro level defensive tackle. You're down to like Tim Settle. Then you're going from, Trey White, your lockdown corner, to Kaiir Elam, who's been a bust in the NFL. Those are massive drop-offs. So they already had trouble stopping the run. Now they're going to have coverage issues. McDermott's going to have to figure that out. The offense also isn't in rhythm the past 2 weeks. You saw that against Jacksonville. You saw it last week against Giants. 2 bad defenses. And Josh Allen's dealing with a sore shoulder, so I'm not sure if he's just off in that sense. So, the Patriots defense is still respectable at least. This is a team that still at least has 3 one-possession losses. 2 of them came at home to Philly and Miami. So they at least played those teams tough. I just think this line is now too high. 2 weeks ago, the Patriots were 2.5 point favorites at home against the Saints. Now they're catching 8.5. The Saints are bad, but they're not 10 points worse than the Bills on a neutral field. So I think this is just a low point. You have to do this in the NFL. This is a low point.
You did it last week. You did it last week.
Yeah. Just you got to try to catch the falling knife. So I'm buying low on the Pats, and this Bills team is not like they're playing well, and I don't think the market is fully adjusted to all the defensive injuries. It's not just the losing 3, and they have other injuries like Russo's still hurt, Shaq Lawson is still dealing with an injury, Ed Oliver's dealing with an injury. They have a couple corners that are dinged up, so like they're kind of a mess right now, and their offense isn't in any type of rhythm. The only thing the Patriots are doing really well this year, they're taking away number 1 receivers. And that's always been a Belichick staple, take away your best weapon. They rank number 1 in the NFL against opposing number 1 receivers. Even after they lost Christian Gonzalez, they took away Devontae Adams, Chris Olave. So they could take away here Diggs, focus on him. And then the rest of the Bills offense, it's meh right now. And the Pats, for how bad they've been extremely unlucky with fumbles, 4th downs, field goals. So like all these little things that are making pick sixes that are making it look way worse than it is bad. But so they're due for a couple bounces here or there. Divisional game, probably their last hurrah before this gets really ugly. So I think it's too many points. I'm holding my nose here. It's awful. I know.
I feel like Bill would have a big market if he's over kind of being the head honcho, gets fired. I'm just going to be a defensive coordinator. It feels like a lot of teams would line up for that and fire their defensive coordinator to hire old Belichick. Okay, before we dive into your team, this is a pretty interesting game. Obviously, Sean McVay, his wife could have a baby any day, and that's, he would. I don't think he's officially announced he would miss the game. I know he said yesterday, under no circumstance, my son knows better, he's not coming on Sunday. But that would be a little bit of a curveball, given that he's the play caller if all of a sudden she went into labor Sunday morning or something. So you got to keep an eye on that. The Steelers, every time I look on social media, whether it's a Penguins game, it's somewhere, their fans are chanting "Fire Matt Canada." It's not like they improved over their bye week. So, the Rams last week was actually pretty impressive. I watched a decent amount of that game. They beat the shit out of Arizona. Probably Arizona's worst effort of the year so far. In LA, there will be a lot of Steeler fans there. That's for damn sure. This team travels well. I've been seeing them play the Niners and the Raiders in the Bay Area, and they always filled that stadium. But are the Steelers, like, if you don't get a TJ Watt sack fumble or a pick six, how do they score?
Yeah, I like the Rams here, -3. This is also like, it's not a classic Tomlin spot. I know he's a dog, but I consider dog spots over a field goal. They're playing a team that's 500. And for what it's worth, just Tomlin's 34-41-1 against the spread on the road against teams with a non-winning record. 5th least profitable coach of all time in that spot. 1-5 after a bye week, playing on the road against a team with a non-winning record. And like, they're coming off of a big win. This isn't like your hype Tomlin gets you up spot at home. If they, once they lose this game at home against the Jags next week, that's when he gets them up, and then they inject Watt and Highsmith with something, and then they score 2 touchdowns. Because honestly, without the Ravens dropping a bunch of passes and then Watt and Highsmith going bananas against Cleveland and Baltimore, this team has 1 win over the Raiders. That's it. Like, this is a 1-win team. The offense is horrendous. They're dead last in success rate in the NFL, like worse than Zach Wilson and the Jets. Like, it's bad. They have one play. They just throw it to George Pickens down the sidelines. That's their entire offense. So both defenses, like the defense, each defense, you would think like the Steelers, like, yeah, they have great edge rushers. The Rams have Aaron Donald. Both secondaries are very questionable. Outside of Minkah Fitzpatrick for the Steelers, very questionable on the outside at corner. Rams could take advantage of that. And I think that's the difference in this game. I think it's that simple, is that I don't trust the Steelers offense to score. And both defenses are grading out around league average. Raheem Morris done a great job with this Rams D with the lack of talent that he has. And they've played one of the toughest schedules of opposing offenses. But I just trust Stafford, and then with, Cutback, Nacua, Atwell, to make more plays in the passing game against the Steelers defense that's been bad against the pass. You can also run on them a bit with Cam Hayward out in the middle. Their run defense falls off a cliff without him. And I just don't trust that Steelers offense to do enough. And this isn't your classic Tomlin spot where you just throw out the stats and be like, he's going to fire them up, find a way. They're sitting 3-2 in first place, coming off of a win. Doesn't matter. It's off a bye. They're playing a non-conference opponent. So yeah, I just trust the Rams offense much more here than the Steelers.
I think the Rams win this game. I mean, we're already talking about them like that, but I mean, they feel like they're on a fast track to be that 9-8 kind of wild card team, which would be a very, very impressive year for McVay. Because guys like me, and I don't think I was alone, thought they were really going to suck, and they haven't not only not sucked, they've been really explosive offensively, like you said. I mean, their passing game now that Cooper Kupp's back, Nakua's good. I saw they got a bunch of running back injuries, but unlike his mentor Shanahan, McVay is like, he'll dump the run game at a moment's notice. He could throw it. He's got a little Andy Reid in him. He'd throw it 50 times a game.
They sacrificed their future for the Super Bowl, which fans would be happy with, even though it worked. It worked. Even if Tart catches a pick, it doesn't. But they have to look. Stafford's now healthy, and they have such little draft capital moving forward. In order for them not to fall off a cliff, like Aaron Donald's not going to be around forever, Stafford's not going to be around forever, they have to hit on like every draft pick, and like hitting on guys like Nacua, Steve Avila looks like he's going to be a pretty good guard. I think that was their first pick in like the 3rd round this year. So they got to hit on their draft picks because they don't have many going forward, and you're going to lose Stafford and you're going to lose Donald eventually. So that's something to watch too.
Well, in a weird way, because the bidding for McCaffrey last year was the Rams and the Niners. And the Niners just trumped them because it was like a second, a third. The Niners had a fourth. They didn't. I think the Rams got lucky that they didn't get that guy because he's more suited for Kyle, one. Yeah. And two, that the Rams, to be this competitive, kind of needed some of those picks to insert some of the players. So it definitely, for missing out on McCaffrey, it still worked out for the Rams. Help them compete this year, and then next year add some more pieces. They could be even better. It feels like, and listen, you probably have the stats off your head. I feel like the Chargers play the Chiefs really, really well. And the Chargers, going back to Phillip Rivers, obviously with Justin Herbert, remember the game that was his first start against the Chiefs when Tyrod Taylor got poked with the needle, when he had to start, they told him 10 minutes before the game or whatever, to last year on Thursday Night Football, the opening Amazon game. They just play well. And Brandon Staley is holding on for dear life here, but when he plays the Chiefs, so getting 5.5, obviously the Chiefs offense is not what it has been a lot of times when they've played them well. The defense is a lot better, but I don't see how you don't take from just an objective, take the Chargers here, getting, well over a field goal.
Yeah, I like the Chargers here. It's not a great spot on paper, like Chiefs extended rest, Chargers short week going on the road, but Andy Reid's only 10, in spite of the narrative out there, he's only 10-13 against the spread with extended rest. And teams on a short week, for whatever reason, going up against teams with extended rest, 45-35 against the spread over the past 20 years, 56%. Maybe the market just over adjusts that narrative a bit. But yeah, you mentioned how close these teams play. There's 6 meetings between Herbert and Mahomes. Herbert is 5-1 against the spread, should be 6-0. The only game he didn't cover is they were catching 3.5. They lost the coin toss, and the Chiefs scored a touchdown, won by 6 in overtime. Yeah. Chargers won 2 times in Kansas City. Their other losses by 3, 3, 3, and 6 in overtime. They haven't been trailing by more than 3 at the end of regulation in any of the 6 meetings against the Chiefs. And these are just like from the most basic handicap. The Chiefs fail to win by margin against, they just struggle to do it as favorites of over a field goal. And the Chargers always play close games. I mean, the Chargers, 20 of their past 25 games have been decided by one possession. It's just the Chargers going back to Rivers, even like the Chargers had the ball down 3 with a minute 30 to go. That's just what the Chargers do. That's how it's always
rinse, wash, repeat every week.
And Rivers is he's panicking, trying to get every like that. That's just how the Chargers are going to be in perpetuity. Mahomes
that overtime game you mentioned too. Remember, I think the Chargers were kicking their ass, and Tyreek Hill made some incredible plays. Right.
The Chargers dropped about 3 picks in that game, and then Hill made a crazy play off a fumble that he scored on, and then Herbert threw
Kelsey had the game winner, I think, in overtime.
Herbert threw a 99-yard pick six. Chargers should have won that game, yeah. But yeah, the Kansas City offense just isn't the same right now. There's offensive line issues, wide receiver room still trying to work itself out. I mean, Mahomes has 9 turnover-worthy plays and 9 big-time throws this year, 1-to-1 ratio. Last year, 38 big-time throws, 18 turnover-worthy plays. He was over 2-to-1 last year. He's at 1-to-1 this year. Gotten away with a couple balls that should have been picked. He's trying to make some things happen because there's the wide receiver room and this offense just isn't clicking. So yeah, and I always think that the Chargers, I tend to think this, and the numbers back me up, is that the Chargers have value on the road because they have no home field advantage. So like at home, I never like them. At home it's usually a road game, and then they go out on the road, and it's just like, who cares? They're used to road games, but they're still getting priced as they're going on the road. For what it's worth, Herbert is 10-4 against the spread as a road dog, including 7-1 when he's getting over a field goal. So yeah, I think that this is a game that's going to come down to the wire. And also, if you're down like 10 late, Herbert will, he's can go down and get you a backdoor touchdown against the Chiefs. And then if the Chiefs are up, the reason the Chiefs have struggled, Mahomes is only 18-27 as against the spread as a favorite of over a field goal over the past 3 seasons. They know how to run out the clock at the end. So like if they're up 3, they can squeeze out the final 6 minutes of the game without scoring, right? You'll see a lot of teams score. They'll say, no, I'm not even going to give you a chance to get the ball back.
They'll hit the ground.
Yeah, they'll go to Kelsey on these little 6-yard throws and they just move the sticks and then just strangle the game away. And that's why another reason why they just don't end up covering sometimes is, a favorite in this range. So yeah, I think you got to go with the Chargers here. I like them.
Okay, let's go game of the week. I had a few Saturday night kind of turn on TV. Tannehill's limping off the field. Malik Willis looked like me or you out there. You guys cruised to a victory. I saw Harbaugh. I didn't quite realize this, though it makes sense because I saw Lamar talking how people were recognizing him over there in the middle of the week. They went really early across the pond, so they spent basically all week over there. Get a nice win, or 4-2. Playing the Lions, who are definitely not sneaking up on anybody. It's not like the Ravens are looking at this team like the normal Lions. I mean, this is going to be, I think it's the best game on the slate. Obviously, the Ravens at home. I'm a big Lions backer. This is the type of week that would make me a little nervous. And then the Ravens win this game. You get the Cardinals the following week. Then you get the Seahawks at home. All of a sudden, you'll look up and the Ravens are going to be like 7-2. So this is a fantastic game. I think I know where you're going to go. It's going to be hard to not take the Ravens in this spot, though. I think the Lions have been pretty battle tested. I'm not expecting them to, kind of roll over. Even if I believe they're a good team, but I'd be a little stunned if they kind of got worked by double-digit points. I expect this to be a tight game.
Yeah, I like the Ravens here. I'm a Ravens fan, but I will tell you on this show this year, I've faded the Ravens 3 times and this is the first time that I'm betting them. So I'm far from a homer when it comes to betting. But this is the sell high spot on the Lions, right? The team that everyone is now in love with. Even if you know nothing about betting, you could do okay in the NFL just by listening. And as soon as you hear all the hype that, okay, like even us on the show, are San Fran going to go undefeated? What happens? They lose to PJ Walker. 3 weeks ago, the Dolphins win by 50 points in a game, score 70. They get crushed the next week. And by the way, the team that crushed them and put up 50 lost to the Jags the next week. Like you're just never as good as you appear. And I think this is the peak of the market on the Lions, who have won 4 straight and have been impressive. But let's slow the brakes a little bit. They beat Bryce Young, Desmond Ridder, Jordan Love, and Baker Mayfield last year, who vomited all over himself. If you watch that game, he missed 3 wide open touchdowns, including a 90-yard touchdown to Mike Evans. There was no one within 40 yards of him. The Lions, and look, the Lions played when they played the Panthers, who were awful. The Panthers were without all 4 starters in the secondary. We know Desmond Ridder is terrible. Jordan Love on the Packers, half their offense was out too. So, like, yes, the Lions are good. They're a real sleeper in the NFC, but let's throw the roll. The last time they played an offense with a pulse was the Seahawks, who put up 40 in a win in Detroit. Now, there was a pick 6 there, but they had moved the ball up and down the field the entire game. And the reason for this Detroit, why I'm looking to sell Detroit now, is I like their offense, although Jared Goff outdoors, not great his whole career. His small hands, doesn't have the strongest arm. He struggled outdoors in his career. There's going to be windy conditions in Baltimore, which also is going to affect special teams. Talked about kickers already. Circled all back. Huge special teams advantage for Baltimore in this game. Huge kicking advantage for Justin Tucker against Riley Patterson. But I'm looking to sell this Detroit defense. The run defense has improved, and I believe in it. Ali McNeil's a great run stuffer. He's taking up blocks. They got a good rotation. Buggs and Jones in the middle there too. You obviously have Hutchinson getting pressure off the edge. But the linebackers, even, they moved Anzalone to Will. He's playing well against the run there. Jack Campbell, the rookie, he's playing well against the run, but they're both struggling in coverage, and their secondary is terrible. I mean, look, their safeties are terrible. Their outside corners are, Jacobs and Sutton. This is a bad secondary. And they've had injuries, to be fair. We'll see if Branch comes back, because Will Harris is one of the worst slots in the NFL. They need him to at least come back. But this secondary is bad. They've just played, nobody over the past 4 weeks. And Baker Mayfield was missing. I mean, he said it after the game. He said, I suck. There were wide open guys all over the field. So there's 2 things that I think the Ravens will do here. And their offense has been so close the past couple weeks. Now they're finally healthy. 2 weeks ago was just all those drops against Pittsburgh, the Tomlin voodoo magic in the Tomlin spot. And then last week was just red zone futility. They were moving the ball up and down the field. I think there's going to be opportunities. And Lamar in the wind, he's much more adept in these weather conditions at moving the ball. And then the Lions with their linebackers have been good against the run, filling gaps, but they're slower. They're going to have trouble keeping up with Lamar Jackson. They're going to have trouble defending Mark Andrews. And then the way that Detroit plays defense, they don't blitz at all. They're one of the lowest blitz rate teams in the NFL. That's not great against Lamar. Lamar, when not blitzed this year, top 2 or 3 quarterback. I think he's 3rd in quarterback rating, 2nd adjusted completion rate, 3rd in yards per attempt. When he's blitzed, he's like 26, 28, 29. He has not figured out the blitz in this new scheme. The Lions aren't blitzing. Maybe they will here, but it's not what they've done all year. Some of the coverages they play on the back end are some of the coverages that Lamar thrives with. Goff, who struggles with certain coverages, that's all the Ravens do. So it's a good matchup schematically and coverage-wise. And I think that this Lions defense is just ripe for the picking. And then there's just all those, the wind, the weather, the special teams. And I think the Ravens offense kind of explodes here. They're kind of overdue. The Detroit defense is kind of overdue to get picked off here. And that secondary, I think, is going to be their downfall. I think the Ravens defense is also a little bit overrated. They played nothing but backup quarterbacks all year, but I still trust that unit overall a bit more.
Is Marlon Humphrey any good?
Yeah, I think he's now starting to finally get to fully healthy, but I think he's when he's 100%, he's one of the better corners in the NFL. I mean, he also can play, like, they can put him in the slot. They can put him outside. He's very versatile. I mean, he can play in the run. He can guard different types of receivers. He's just got to be healthy. Now he's got like a year or 2 left before you'll see him fall off a cliff, as a lot of these corners do. But this is a Ravens team that dealt with so many injuries early on in the season. They're finally fully healthy. I think they're going to exploit this Detroit secondary. And I think this is a great spot to back the Ravens and sell high on the Lions, who are good. They're going to be a real contender, but a lot of this, I think this line should be over a field goal. I mean, over the last 4 weeks, I explained who they played. It's been nobody. It's a bunch of clown car quarterbacks, and Mayfield just missing wide receivers all over the field. So I think the Ravens get it done. Happy to lay a field goal here.
One thing looking at their schedule is they've already played all 3 division teams on the road. So the 3 remaining divisional games are all at home. And they get the NFC West. And to me, they're going to be favored in 3 of the 4 games. And obviously they got to go to San Francisco, but they get the Rams at home and they get Seattle at home. And also the other tough game on the schedule is the Dolphins, and they get them at home as well. So in terms of home and away, it breaks really well for them down the stretch. That, you win this game. Like I said, the next 2 games are at Arizona. That's a win. And then playing Seattle at home, they'll be favored in that. I mean, they have a very, very good chance to be 7-2 going into that tough little stretch of, playing the Browns and the Bengals, but they've already beat the Browns. So, that defense, Lamar is really the only guy. I mean, I saw some numbers of every quarterback they've played. They've punked them. Lamar in that first half just destroyed them. I mean, he was that was an MVP half. So
they put up 28 on a Browns team that basically no one can get a first down.
And what was it, 21-3 at half, and it was over.
I mean, they could have put up more if they weren't playing, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. But I mean, to put a bow on it, Lamar Jackson, kind of like Mahomes in a way, his against the spread splits. Like the Ravens are smart at running the clock out. You don't really like to play them in the favor role. Lamar's 18-4 against the spread as an underdog or favorite of 3 or less, covering by 8 points per game. 12-1 against teams with a winning record. 10-0 when the spread is between a field goal and a field goal. And in comparison, he's just 18-27 as a favorite of more than a field goal. The same exact number as Mahomes over the past 3 years. And Mahomes, I think, is like 17-4 against the spread as an underdog or favorite of 3 or less. Like basically when you just need them to win the game or they're an underdog, they're almost an auto bet. I think that this is a good buy spot on the Ravens. People forget about that Browns game, what they did that Browns D.
Oh, I don't. I watched it.
Yeah, but I'm saying the past 2 weeks, they should have put up 28 against Pittsburgh. They had like 3 drop touchdowns, and then last week they should have put up about 40 against Tennessee. I mean, they kicked 5 red zone field goals. I think a lot of that they were just conservative. They were just running it in the red zone, knowing that, like, especially once Tannehill got hurt, we have this game in the bag. I think you'll see them be more aggressive here. Andrews and Lamar's legs are a matchup nightmare for this Detroit defense. I think that's going to be the difference, and they're going to hit a couple deep shots that have been coming against this Detroit team that's been having a lot of busted coverages and getting away with it against bad quarterbacks.
One big advantage the Chiefs have had the last couple of years in the AFC playoffs is they never have to go on the road, and they've played in some weird games, but having that game at home has been a huge advantage. If someone, and obviously the Ravens would be a team, can somehow have the home field advantage, that could be a huge swing. Because you think about some of the weird games Kansas City has played in. Was it the Browns a couple of years ago? Last year, the Jags game. Obviously, Mahomes has been injured. They lost to the Bengals, right? But that was Mahomes might have had a concussion or whatever. But for the most part, just never having to leave has been an underrated advantage of the Chiefs' kind of little mini dynasty they've been on. And it'll be interesting if, obviously, the Chiefs keep winning. It's going to be they're just going to have a fantastic record. In which they will, but like, can the Ravens or someone else go 14-3 and push them for that number 1 seed?
Probably not. There's a couple rules in the NFL. One of them, we talked about, the Chargers have to be in a close game down by 3 late. The other is the Ravens. Look, I've season tickets for 13 years. The Ravens aren't allowed to have home playoff games. One of the benefits of season tickets is you get home playoff games. The Ravens never have them. They won 2 Super Bowls as wild card teams that went on the road the entire time. They went on the road and beat Manning, Brady when they beat your 49ers with Flacco going nuts. They beat Luck, Brady, Manning on the road and then beat the 49ers Super Bowl. 2001 historic team, the 2000 team with the historic defense, wild card team. Went on the road. They were playing.
Who won that division? Was it Tennessee?
Tennessee, yeah. That was the division back then. They went on the road and beat Tennessee. That was an awesome game. Ray Lewis stripped Eddie George and ran it back. So the only time as season ticket holder that they had a bye and a home game was the most depressing game I've ever been to in my entire life. 2007. McNair was the McNair was the quarterback. They went 14-2, 15-1, somewhere around, or 13-3. Bye, home game, first time ever playing the Colts, who Indianapolis left Baltimore. So all the old heads never had a stadium be louder, more electric before a game. Ravens had a bye, hosting Peyton Manning. I think Ed Reed had 2 or 3 picks of Peyton Manning. No touchdowns scored in the game. lose 15-6. And that was it. And that's like the only home game that the Ravens ever got, that meaningful one. So
Was
no
Vinatieri
AFC
the Colts
Championship
kicker
game.
that year?
Yeah, Vinatieri versus Stover. Ended 15-6 on 7 field goals in the game, no touchdowns, and that was it for the Ravens. So yeah, the Ravens, if they win, whenever they win, they win a Super Bowl like every 10 to 12 years, and they got to go on the road as a wild card team. But hopefully,
Was that the year Peyton Manning won the Super Bowl? Did they play the Patriots the next week and come back?
Yeah.
What a year. I remember watching that game. 15, they kicked 5 field goals.
Yeah,
what a
that
game.
was, yeah, it was
Was that 08
most
playoffs?
depressing. I always get the years confused if it was like, no, that was
Yeah,
2000.
that might have been the previous year. I think they might
Yeah,
have
that was the
played
previous year. That was
done to
2006 season going into 2000. Like, so the game was in 2007.
Yeah, but it was the 06 season, yeah. And then the next year, the Patriots get Randy Moss and everything, the 07 team.
Correct.
Yeah. So I think the Colts won it their 06 season and in like
Yes.
February of 07.
Yep. They beat the Ravens 15-6 and went on to win the Super Bowl. So yeah, it wasn't a good run for my season tickets having home playoff games, but what are you gonna do?
Well, hell, you might get a Super Bowl this year. The Ravens keep playing like they're playing. Stuckey, have a good weekend, and let's roll, baby.
Absolutely. Good luck. Cheers.